All right. Thank you for inviting me. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited. I have so much information to share. I do this every time. I prepare way too many slides, so I talk a mile a minute, and I just want you to know everything that I know. So here comes my data dump. We're going to start by just wrapping our minds around the problem of breast cancer. So the topic today is breast defense, how to minimize cancer risk. And as was said in the introduction, in passing, every time you lift fork to mouth, what you think and don't think, what you do or don't do, what you drink or don't drink, what you touch or don't touch, brings you closer to cancer or farther away. So I'm really hopeful that today's presentation will empower you to make daily small decisions that will have a huge impact on your current and future health. All right, here, let's start with a pop quiz. Pop quiz. You and all of your loved ones will most likely die from this disease. What is it? Ding, 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 I heard you all answer correctly. Of course it's heart disease. About 6.6 million women will be diagnosed with heart disease this year, and almost 300,000 will die. And if you look at women's diseases, you are 26 times more likely to develop cardiovascular disease and 7 times more likely to die from it than you are to get or die from breast cancer. However, that's not to minimize cancer risk. If you look at the prevalence of all cancers in women, behind skin, breast is the most common, accounting for 30% of all the cancers that will be diagnosed in women this year. So here's a little overview, our fast facts on breast cancer. Over 1 million women have died since 1970, so we have a lot of work to do. However, there are 3.8 million breast cancer survivors, or thrivers as I prefer to call them, who have now or have had in the past breast cancer. In other words, there's a lot of women walking around who have dealt with or are dealing with this disease because it's become more of a chronic condition than it is a diagnosis that leads to a rapid decline and death. Now, men out there, you too have breasts. That might be shocking for some people, and you can get breast cancer. About 2,670 men will get diagnosed this year, and 500 will die. The death rate from breast cancer has gone down about 2.2% per year since 1998, owing largely to earlier diagnosis and better treatments. The 5-year survival for a node negative cancer, so where cancer is just stuck in the breast, is 99%. Now, that's not to say that like you die year 6. Doctors always talk generally in 5-year survival. We have some data that's 10 and 15-year survival, but the point of 5-year reflects most likely the treatments that you'll be getting if you're newly diagnosed. If I give you the 25-year survival of a breast cancer, will we be looking at like pre-Herceptin and other drug times where that data is going to be sounding a lot worse. So we use the 5-year because it's going to be relevant for someone dealing with the disease right now. Age. So 95% of all breast cancer happens in women over 40. The median age, so half at or above or half below, the median age in the US is 62. The incidence, there's been a really slow rise in breast cancer since 2004. It's reached a 0.3% increase pretty steadily since 2012. However, for women under 50, it's been rock stable since 1985. So actually, breast cancer is not increasing at a rate in younger people such that you would ever notice, and it really hasn't been increasing. So why is it that I constantly hear people say, it seems like breast cancer is becoming more and more common these days, and it's happening younger and younger? It actually isn't. But what has changed of recent years is the accessibility to the knowledge and the permission to speak freely about the disease. So your media pages are filled with seeing that a friend's daughter's 25-year-old friend has breast cancer. You never would have known about that young lady even 15 years ago. So I do think that it feels like it's more prevalent and happening younger, but actually the stats as I just went through them are fairly constant. Okay, I'm going to go through just our top 4 risk factors for breast cancer about which you can do nothing. Not to make you feel helpless, but just to kind of put it in the context of, okay, here's what you can do nothing about. So let's spend the rest of our time focusing on everything you can do something about. The first is being female. So ladies, would we actually do anything about that if we could? No, I'm kidding. But one in, anybody know? 1 in 8 women gets breast cancer in her lifetime, as opposed to 1.3 out of every 100,000 men. So certainly being female is the biggest risk factor. The next one is age, your age and aging. So again, 1 in 8, that's a 12 point, actually, when you do the exact math, it's a 12.8% chance for all women, just being women, to get breast cancer before you layer in other things that can elevate or decrease that risk. So it's 12.8%. Well, it's not 12.8% every day of your life, every morning when you wake up, or we'll all have breast cancer by Christmas. It's literally stratified by decade of life. And remember, the median age was 62. So how does this work out in terms of how old you are now? So get your age in your head and let's see what decade you fall into. If you're currently in your 20s, so the risk of getting breast cancer between the ages of 20 and 30 is 1 in 1,479 20-somethings getting breast cancer in their 20s. Between 30 and 40, it's 1 in 209. Between 40 and 50, it's 1 in 65 women. Between 50 and 60, it's 1 in 42. Between 60 and 70, it's 1 in 28. Between 70 and 80, ding, 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 this is the highest decade with 4.1% of women in their 70s getting breast cancer. It's 1 in 25. Between 80 and 90, it is 1 in 33. So you see, it was only when you add up all those 1-ins decade after decade that you end up with a lifetime risk of 1 in 8. Third risk factor is race. All other racial and ethnic groups have at least 28% less breast cancer incidence than whites and blacks, and they all have about 52% less death from breast cancer than African Americans. So whites have the highest incidence, but followed very closely by blacks. And yet blacks are 40% more likely to die from their breast cancers than white women, age for age, stage for stage. And I have another 90-minute PowerPoint on why. It's very multifactorial. It has to do sometimes with socioeconomics and a lack of timely quality access to timely quality healthcare. Some of it has to do with the inherent biology being more aggressive. For example, there's a very aggressive subtype called triple negative. It's the hardest to cure. 11% of whites and 22% of blacks diagnosed with breast cancer will have triple negative. So more aggressive subtypes. And then there are also some inherent genetic factors. The Human Genome Project had started to uncover, but it's complicated, but it's a fact that Black women will have the highest mortality. Family history. Okay, why is it that doctors are so interested in family history? Well, sometimes if there's a lot of cancer going on, it points to an inherited gene mutation. So what percentage of breast cancer can be attributed to an inherited genetic mutation, such as BRCA or maybe CHEK2, PALB2? 5 to 10, 30 to 40, 60 to 70, or 80 to 90? 5 to 10. Okay, it's only 5 to 10% of all people with breast cancer can attribute the main reason for its presence to a gene mutation such as BRCA, which means 90 to 95% of people with breast cancer don't have said mutations. But for a second, it's really important to understand, well, what if you're in the 5 to 10%? What does that even mean? So what this means is when you have let's just talk about BRCA, a BRCA mutation, we all have BRCA genes. They're supposed to work. And when your DNA goes awry and makes a mutation, BRCA swoops in and either fixes it or throws it out. So it can't propagate and eventually become a detectable mass in your breast. So if you have this particular gene mutation, how high a risk are we talking about? Oh, really high. So the risk of getting breast cancer by age 70 in the BRCA population is up to 87% versus 8% population. And ovarian cancer risk is up to 44% versus less than 1% by age 70 general population. So this is important information in front of a cancer diagnosis because there are massive risk reducing strategies that you can employ. And at the very least, up the ante with your screening and surveillance. So in my opinion, knowing your genetic truth is not something to fear. I think it's empowering, and I think it gives you choices, more choices than you ever would have had. And frankly, that insurance will cover most of the time, than if you had never known it all. So are you possibly at risk for a gene mutation? Here are the red flags for people whose risk would be 10% or greater, which then generally insurance always covers the testing for. So if you, on either side of the family tree now, I want you to think about 3 generations above and below you. So what I mean is like your mother, grandmother, great aunts, great grandmother, and then your children, nieces, nephews, anyone you have a direct bloodline to for the 3 generations. If 2 of those relatives on the same side of the tree, mom or dad's side, have had breast cancer prior to age 50 or ovarian cancer at any age, you should test. If you're Ashkenazi Jewish, you just need one of the above. It's the Jewish special. So you just need one relative with breast cancer prior to age 50 or ovarian cancer at any age. Why is that? Because all of us running around, 1 in 500 people carry a BRCA mutation. If you're of Ashkenazi or Eastern European descent, 1 in 40. If you yourself have had breast cancer prior to menopause, if you've had a triple negative breast cancer under 60, if you've had 2 totally separate breast cancers, not just one and then a recurrence of one, any men in the family tree with breast cancer, any known gene mutation carrier with a direct bloodline to you, pancreatic cancer, which is rare, like 1 in 1,000 people, plus an ovarian or breast raises the red flag. And then finally, just a whole lot of cancer going on. 3 or more of the following on the same side of the family: breast, ovarian, pancreatic, prostate, colorectal, gastric, uterine, melanoma. Those are the red flags for testing. Some people still worry about genetic discrimination and the potential change of laws that protect against that. Here's your chance to call yourself Wonder Woman, and no one will know the difference. This is an at-home kit. It's the only FDA-approved at-home genetic testing kit. It looks at 30 different gene mutations. All of the breast ones are in it. We have an online store called Elements. It's available for $239, and the kit gets mailed to you. You spit in a tube. You register it online, spit in a tube, send it back, and it comes with board-certified genetic counseling regarding the results as well. So you could do that, or you could just ask your doctor to test you.